Completely agree. So Roscoe, we got Triska. Shout out to them being one of the NECC broadcast interns. Big Toad, MC Speedrun, Real Mr. Taco Cat, and Sacred Shia. I actually don't know how to say that correctly. But who are their opponents, Mick?
Well, that's going to be the likes of the swords going over. We can go ahead and take a quick little look at them. We see Animu, Donk, Dominiskara, Graham, and the Atom Bomb 24. So a little bit more basic names, but I mean, all things considered, I always love seeing just kind of players, whenever they don't take much time for their names, it obviously means that usually, honestly, from my experience, those are the ones that usually fry the most because they're like, I'm not worried about being creative. I don't really need to make much of a brand for myself. I just fry, and that does all the talking for me. But more importantly, we got to look at the map veto.
And you talked about how these teams should know each other, their strengths and weaknesses, and this map pool is the perfect example of it. Each team banning strong suits for their respective sister teams, and then picking their strongest undefeated maps. Roscoe undefeated on Bind, Swords undefeated on Sunset. So I truly think that there's a chance we go the distance here on to Split. And then from there, I have no clue what we would see out of the Swords from Split because it has been played a few times by the Roscoes, but they have been changing things up.
You can play around, which is also why you would see a breach every here and there. But I mean, seeing that obviously Raze is going to be expected beyond this map and knowing that the Swords aren't even opting for that in general, I'm surprised they're not seeing any more kind of consistent flashes that can follow with it, and that you're just relying on that Yoru and Reyna to kind of play off the back of each other.
Getting ready to jump into this first round. Looks like a tried and true A split, a standard Yoru gate crash take into showers if needed, but since nobody there from the Swords was playing it, it's just business ahead. Interestingly enough, no rotations from the B site yet, despite all the pressure building up, but the line of scrimmage being held by an incendiary there should get the work done. And here comes the re-execute off of that Dizzy, and these smokes are going to ensure no fights are taken just yet.
Yeah, seeing the way this is already going off, I mean, you can see these trades being made. You see the Roscoe already coming out on top by a pretty significant margin, seeing that they only have 2 players alive so far on the side of the Swords. It really comes down to how much pressure is going to be exerted towards this spawn, whether they just want to cut them off or just play for the spike time. And they're already doing a pretty darn good job of just making sure that spawn's held down, really forcing the hand of the Swords here, having to go for a little bit of a retake. And knowing that it's going to be coming right here from Hall is a little bit wild, considering you're not really splitting this up too much. You're not looking for a flank, but even then, if you have a singular player funnel into both of them, it should make it pretty easy. But it also makes it a very easy clothesline when you look at, I mean, still, that same exact approach coming out is heaven. Let's be real. If you don't have that many players, it's going to be much, much worse.
Yeah, and at this point, you can see just playing for exits, Graham. Graham, why are you saving a ghost is my real question. But regardless, I guess that'll be one upgrade to go into your save this following round. But Roscoe takes the first pistol on their map pick, and we're going to see that hefty buy up in the form of that hero rifle for Sacred and a Guardian for Big Toad. The rest going with the stock standard of, a Spectre, a little bit lighter. But I'm glad that they're going with those heavy shields because, there could be an outlaw creeping around any corner here if they were to try and force it up, but I don't think any of them got enough frags to be able to afford it. In fact, MZ Speedrun is the one who says, all right, you mentioned an outlaw, I'll bring an outlaw to the table.
Yeah, I mean, just looking for something early on here, knowing that gun's going to have a massive impact on the secondary round. Even then, I mean, you see a lot of teams, especially with this Vandal Force coming through, they're not only playing for the second round, they're playing for the third, they're playing for the fourth. They want to make sure to have an impact over the course of this game, and I think those are 2 of the best weapons to do it, especially when you have a player who's a pretty consistent sniper. We haven't really seen too much of that yet. We don't really see the Marshal being brought out, but we do see already these frags coming their way. Going right back towards that spawn where Taco Cat's getting a little bit aggressive with that Spectre, but that's the gun that you really can lose because it doesn't be too much of an impact. Z is already up towards the top on Heaven, able to go ahead and grab one more kill, secure the entirety of that spawn, at least from what they think. Meanwhile, Rain is once again on the other side of the map with that ghost that we mentioned being safe for the last round, and I'm sure isn't even really going to go for an attempt in this one. DC'd apparently is what we're getting.
Ouch. Graham, they were asked to do too much in the previous round. I'm hoping we get to see a hunting party, but for now, I mean, playing it safe. You saw how many frags they were able to get on the pistol alone, and finally, with the communication likely coming through, there's the teleports, there's the hunt, and it'll be a second round of a ghost saved if they don't actually, have it lost when we jump into the next round. Yeah, they'll keep the ghost for when they reconnect, but that's unfortunate because we'll have to make sure that they come back, which is why we're going to take a tech pause so that they can get a gun forced up. But I think that save is going to cost them a weapon is the concern here, right? And when you have a Reyna, that Feast or Famine agent, they need to have all the tools possible in that arsenal. So a little worrisome in that regard. The save going to make a toll, but looking at the squad there from Roscoe and the weapons that they're bringing over, this is going to be a pretty decent chance at getting a conversion.
Yeah, I think honestly, looking at a round like this, I mean, already going ahead and start with that 2, especially in such a critical round, you're expecting something, but I mean, knowing it's already somewhat of a flawless, it's not the biggest deal in the world. It's more so that Ghost that we were looking at already kind of being saved in that last round, and that's going to have somewhat of a relative impact here, because even then that diminishes the economy of that singular player, which is definitely going to hurt him in the long run, knowing that already, I mean, that's a singular gun. That's most arguably probably the most influential in a round like this, because you're relying on your duelists to get that momentum rolling. The best chance you're going to have in something like this is another one of these players picking off Zia or picking off one of these other players, and then just as a result, converting that into your Reyna being able to pick that thing up, because otherwise you're only going to have the armor to work with, or maybe you're forcing up a sheriff and kind of looking for that compromise. And even then, if you come out on a win on top, you have a little bit more money to work with at the end of it.
So I hope they're on the site where this aggression is coming through, or maybe they can take advantage of these bind teleports to get fast flank, plays into place, because obviously a Reyna on a retake isn't as strong as a Reyna fighting for those initial first bloods, and as you mentioned, just missing out into safety where they know their team still has control over that part of the site, versus an unknown on a retake where you don't know who might be lurking around each corner. So we're coming out of the tech pause, though. We'll get to see exactly what the plan here is for Swords, what some of those changes are, and it looks like they just swapped the 3-stack over to B, and this lurk of the spike outside of A, we really don't have a 100% guarantee of where Roscoe's going to be headed. I could see there's not even a gate crash over there, so the gate crash not going to be a rotation option. We'll just have to see if they find a first blood and if that prompts the rotation, or if it's going to be a TP play after they make noise on B.
And even then, I mean, they're not looking for too much early aggression. I mean, those kinds of weapons that were brought in the last round are going to go ahead and queue a little bit of that, but to know that spike has already been dropped over towards that shower angle, that's going to cue a little bit of an already kind of keeping those eyes towards that side of the map, and whether or not they're going to want to find themselves in a rotation, or whether they're going to want to find themselves in a different fight. But speaking of fights, we're already seeing one over here on this B side of the map. Already seeing that Reyna getting picked off, not really having much of a shot with that Ghost in hand, and seeing a 1-for-1 just come across the board. But because that was a play that was covering that elbow angle, you got to make sure to keep eyes on it, and it still comes out to a trade. It being Donk and still having those smokes down and still having that pressure and making sure to find those corrective kills, you know that, okay, things are aired out a little bit. We're good. This guy's holding this thing down. The rest of you can honestly go away, because it seems like he's just got it.
Oh, but look at that timing. Denied spike plant, gets out with a numbers advantage. Yes, there's a mosh to try and re-secure the plant, but in the meantime, the Atom Bulbs, they're literally prodding other parts of the map here, trying to play Distractor to as much utility, as much damage as possible, and that Tripwire is perfect for them to get another frag, placing Big Toad in the 1v3, and oh, that has to hurt through a smoke because of that recon bolt. That is a surefire way to get that round, and the first here from Swords, I mean, maybe the answer is just retake with numbers.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even then, just holding down a site, it's going to be a big thing here, considering we already saw Donk find those corrective kills that were on that B side of the map, and make sure to lock that thing down, and even then force that rotation over towards the A side. We saw the Cypher set up there, and while that is going to be somewhat of a big variable, considering that you're not going to find consistent kills, it's not going to happen on a round-to-round basis, unless it does, and Donk's just that guy. But looking at what they've done and seeing what can happen over the course of this game, if that just happens again, you keep on funneling them into your utility somewhere else by the exact fragability of a singular setup, I think that's kind of what they're going for. Just find that Cypher to set up on A, put your bigger fraggers in the other side of the map, look for that easy rotation with that gate crash, and hope on a round-to-round basis you finally manage to get these guys to go somewhere different where they just don't really have the chance to excel.
They were split up a little bit last round, but I like the use of this dimensional drift now from Taco Cat into the site, gathering lots of information that actually is going to inform a first blood here. So site free for the taking. Graham gonna get challenged by this clone and dismiss out of the gate crash, but Donk at least good for the trade to keep advantage here in Roscoe's favor. And with the flags spotted out, all these players for Swords are really divided, Mick.
I mean, even in a retake situation again, that division is going to kind of still offer a lot for him, considering you have that controller live. Roscoe with that incendiary are ready to go. So, I mean, you can look at the possibility of what that can do. It's more just a denial tool. Looking to go ahead and stall things out, see what can happen there. And knowing that the rest of Roscoe's kind of coming around from these different angles while still just holding things down right there on top of site leads to a pretty strong start from all things considered. I mean, knowing that they're looking at 3-1, they have the Thrash to work with for a free push on the site, and even then, a secondary at that. I mean, I think Gecko, his ultimate, being able to cast that twice, I still don't know from a balance perspective just how that was allowed through. It's just such an insane thing to know that you can use it once to get on the site, then use it again to go ahead and put that pressure into spawn, to where Gecko's one singular ability essentially feels like a duelist just doing the job of creating that space because of how much of a threat it is.
And they got to figure out a way to deny these cohesive site takes that Roscoe is bringing. Fortunately, they don't have a dimensional drift every round, so a way to disrupt his early momentum, early aggression, but unfortunately Adamu, the classic, gets damage off but no frag to follow. So again, a first blood in Roscoe's favor, and looks like Spike wants to head towards his B side despite all the prodding this double duelist is bringing, and it's gonna be the Thrash to try and clear out the site. Graham, this could be huge.
I'll let you know, something's free. Maybe a kill, considering the gun in hand. Not too much to do with the classic in that kind of situation, and considering the rest of the team is just kind of flooding on and using ultimates and whatnot, you're at the point where, oh my god, I may be just as good as dead here. But hey, the rest of the team has showed up, at least to some degree, but they don't last very long because, well, this retake has not had much success yet. I gotta say, honestly, Toad, yeah, go ahead, hold back, let that ultimate come to you once more, and let the rest of the team push that and realize that, hey, they're gonna run right into a Bucky and at least find one dead. But that's not the biggest deal considering the large scale of things, because you still got 4 players remaining, and you still have another ultimate in exchange for that. The Showstopper, once again, a very big tool in terms of pressure. So Roscoe kind of feels like they have 2 free plants to go off the back of this.
I'm sorry, I was just very impressed, because I feel like we don't get to see that finisher very often when you are the top frag, like Sacred Jasbin. I mean, they've been doing their job entering, they've been distractor, they've been doing everything they can on this raise and this kit. But now, again, it looks like Swords is going for that approach of trying to seek out these first bloods. The double duelist pushing down Humane. Well, the true exec is into this a site where, unfortunately, the Showstopper's not going to hit a mark, so Dog will be able to shut that down, albeit the Scare Factor gets control of the site, and Mr. Taco Cat's going to challenge this U-Haul control. It's got to be respected until the neural theft is expended.
Just over and over and over again, we're seeing a lot being invested just for these little corners. I mean, every here and there, and the spike is down in the meantime, so you do have that timer working in your favor, but it comes down to the rest of the team and what they're really accomplishing off the back of this. You do have the 2 remaining players under that Gecko and under that Cypher, so you do have someone with the post play, but that dimensional drift going through is going to give you all the information you really need to kind of be like, okay, what's going on here? We got a player allocated towards main, we got another player on site, but even then, that's not enough for the Swords to really get the job done, because Animu, while you did get that information that was critical, you didn't hit the shots, back it up to really make it worth it. So Roscoe find themselves a 5th round to work with, still had 2 ultimates off the back of it. The way they're recycling these things, I love to see that coming from them. I mean, you see a lot of players very hesitant to kind of use those, say, hold off on it, but they realize we still got plenty of rounds to go. Worst case, let's use these right now. Let's find ourselves this lead. Let's really just try to drive that thing in, because we know that worst case, if we do see the Swords make a little bit of a comeback, we'll die and grab enough orbs on the attacking side to get those again.
I mean, look at it. Mr. Taco Cat and Big Toad already 5 out of 7 on those lower cost ultimates. And you talked about cycling. Well, they're going to invest 1 here and there. This time the Orbital Strike to take U-Haul control. And Dominus Karma full blind means they cannot capitalize off of those trap wires. In the meantime, look at where Sacred has found themselves in a great position to punish this CT or Heaven pressure. Unfortunately, Spycam might split it out, which is why Taco Cat instead is going to be the one to deliver that forward pressure, that forward force, since they know it's an eco round, but that's just a quick little delivery of a Vandal to hopefully fund the retake effort for Swords.
Comes down to who really picked it up and what they can get done with it. Consider that you did see that pickup come in from that Heaven area and try to come right on the side. It's not going to do much there, considering that that's the player that has to be your hero at that point. They got to put on the cape and really just go ahead and start flying on the site. But even then, it could be a direct delivery right back. It could be a return to sender kind of situation when you don't really find an impact necessary off the back of it. So when you see Roscoe once more just kind of invest in these ultimates, saying that it doesn't really matter all that much, to where even then that Orbital Barrage didn't find too much impact, but it lets you know all the information necessary. that left side of the site's clear. We can get free U-Haul control now. Everything else is going to start to unravel here. And knowing that they do have at least usually 3 players over towards that B site, worst case is they're probably over back towards heaven. Or even them, maybe one's showers. But no matter what, that wingman's going to find that space. And it's going to be very, very easy coverage to make sure to guarantee that plant and get the clock to work in your favor once more. So already we're seeing the cycle come through. The Thrash is up once more. And the Swords, they got a lot to work with here. But it really comes down to how they want to use it because they got the guns to back it up.
Well, you know, mentality is half the game. So Roscoe, little family photo here while we wait for their sister teams, Reina, Graham, to get reconnected here again. Oh, it'd be great if we got like a school photo with both squads. But for now, when you're up 6-1, yeah, you've got the mentality in your favor. It's your map pick. We're all vibing. And it's a great screenshot to have for later, considering, I mean, this is a team that has only dropped 1 map in all of the group stage in that regular season. It's not that they're into playoffs. They are one of the teams to beat versus Swords, right? They've had a bumpy road, and this is their chance at redemption to take down, I would say, you know, the older sibling in this case, have you beat. I mean, they're the lower rank, the lower seed, and be a huge upset, but I don't want to take Bind too much to heart, Mick, because like I said, this map pool, the second map is what is Swords a go-to. So they can just get enough rounds to keep the mental sharp, to keep their spirits high, then I think they're vibing.
And that's the impressive thing too, is knowing just kind of the difference between these two teams, especially one being kind of 7-0 coming into this game, the other being 4-3 in their respective areas. Knowing that, I mean, still they're matched up against each other. This is kind of probably won a couple matches on against them. This is going to be our best shot to at least kind of drag this thing out to a third map and make things possible if Bind does go against them.
And that's a fun fact, is that Roscoe has not played Sunset the entire group stage. They have played every other map that has been in rotation except for that one. So, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be a Dark Horse map or if it's a map they're not prepared for, minus maybe those scrims against their sister team that has made it an undefeated legend for them, being 4-0 for the Swords. But we're back into the action on Bind, the first hurdle to be jumped over here in this series in the Midwest playoffs for the Navigators division. And looks like, even though it was a pause, Roscoe coming out of it hot. Thrash, B split underway, and with it getting destroyed so early, they might just cut it loose and go back towards A.
Yeah, with a nice little denial already going over towards that B side of the map. You see the A set up and the Cypher being allocated over there, but it comes down to the rest of the team going ahead and aggressing up, trying to meet the players at main. And it just doesn't work out for him. Taco Cat's already squeezed over back towards spawn, and if you find at least one here, you can say that's a good job. But considering the damage you done, you basically did your work. You found a player's worth of a kill. The other 2 are already down to half, so it makes the rest of the pickings for Roscoe kind of easy to go ahead and just sweep under the floor. But knowing that orbital barrage is available in a 3v3 situation, it's questionable, it's feasible, but do you really want to make that sacrifice just yet when you don't have all the information necessary? I think it'd be more kind of prominent to put over back towards that main area, but when you find that initial kill, already funneling that player out of U-Haul, you understand that numbers are now working out for you. That's going to get a player out of showers to push or to retreat, so it's an easy defuse to go off. And in a 3v1 scenario, just go ahead, stall. Make sure the guy's taking fights. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose them. You got the round done, and you found yourself a second.
Did you see it? That's a trust me, I have lineups moment. The lineup landed on top of triple and was not denying the spike defuse. They meant to play a lineup there, and that's unfortunate because I think the lineup would have won them that round. But regardless, that was just great usage of utility from the Trapwire to keep the players divided. To flash it, or sorry, to the spy cam. It really was all the Cypher utility there from Dominus Karma, because even Taco Cat was forced into a corner to remove that dart, and that's what bought them the time. You know, praise Big Toad for getting that information, fighting for deeper U-Haul control. At the end of the day, it was too much information given over, and then once that numbers advantage was in their favor, as you mentioned, that's when they can get somebody on the spike. But back to the tried and true, back to this A split, and with that 6-round lead, I think they could have gone for the buy-up, and that's exactly what they're going to bring to this site.
Even then, the dimensional drift, I like to call it the orbital VSAT, just like in the COD days where you just have live view where everybody's looking where they are, and even then you can just kind of shoot at your teammate at the end of the day. But still, when you don't have that follow-up, I mean, the rest of the team's saying, you're on your own there, buddy. You can go ahead and try to go for hero play here, but considering the rest of us are sitting back on that spike and waiting to play this post plant, they made the right decision. Don't overextend, just get some free damage where you can, and a lot of it done there on Atomic Bomb. 24 already sitting on 26 HP for that incendiary. And knowing that everybody else is just still sitting in the back of the map, you have that Cypher alive, you got a Gecko there for, I mean, just a little bit of denial once more. And once you see that Brimstone, you understand that this may be pretty chalk. I mean, the only thing that can make it worse is if you do see a Viper. But, I mean, insult to injury, you do lose a player. But Atom Bomb, thankfully, able to get out of that one, save that Vandal for the next round, and hopefully at least have some piece of something. Have something in the utility belt, which will be that Vandal, which could be a very, very big asset, considering the rest of the team doesn't really have a buy off the back.
And that's one of the differences here between these two squads, and specifically Roscoe, is they're being very forward focused on these site ticks. I mean, you consistently have an incendiary in heaven. You have Mr. Taco Cat pressuring into CT, and it's been working for them.
This definitely has. I mean, already having themselves 7 rounds, knowing they have an advantage when it comes around to the second half, worst case. I mean, you see that, I mean, even then, Roscoe are just happy to be in this set of shoes. And knowing they can just kind of execute off it, knowing they're already getting aggressive off the back of it, knowing that, I mean, this round's going to be an eco once more, they understand the flip-flop when it comes around to buying and then not buying. So they understand that aggression is a lot more warranted here. They're not going to have to sacrifice as much. Big Toe can kind of just invest everything right off rip because you just really play escort at that point. You get one of the fastest plants in the game that you could really ask for. Knowing that already 3 players are knocked out as well, it comes down to the swords and how they're going to answer, because they do have these 3 ultimates to work with these coming rounds, and with only 3 rounds remaining after this, or even then, that's the best case. That's those 2 that you're going to be playing with now, with the 8th being locked up for Roscoe. It's just something that you have to kind of either understand, do you want to use as more of a counterplay, considering that Roscoe have theirs, and they're more than likely going to use them with how we've seen them allocate it so far. Or are you just going to kind of save things for a final hoorah on that last one to say, look, 9-3, maybe if we throw everything we got at them at one simultaneous point, or will they be able to meet the pressure?
That is the question. I mean, 8-2 already a dominant lead established here, and they're not done fighting because, again, we jump back to how dominant their utility and their ult cycling has been. I mean, look, they already have Orbis, right? They already have Showstopper back in the mix. And I mean, that's why they've just been going for these decisive A-splits time and time again. This round, no exception, but the difference is Donk and Atom Bomb here on the choke point, sprays through the smoke, Judge up close and personal, and with the shower front being held temporarily, it allows the repivot, the readdress here. Look at this Dizzy. Is it enough? The answer so far, yes, but there's an incendiary there too. So Swords doing a good job this round, heating that initial pressure, getting numbers advantage in their favor early on. And I mean, Spike is in their control, actually.
The gamble they've been trying to take for the majority of the game now, and it's finally starting to pay off for them. And this is the most critical round to do it, right? I mean, considering that this is the last round of the half, I mean, even then you've already lost that Yoru's estimate, who will drift on for the meantime, but still, Roscoe have those ultimate players alive. They have the Thrash to play with. They have the Orbital Barrage. They have the Neural Theft. And I think that's going to be the biggest player here. Knowing that it's only 1 remaining player left, sure, you don't need it to understand anymore, because while a Neural Theft is great, seeing a player dead to a matchup will do you even more. It'll make a nice, easy little cleanup to use the Orbital Barrage, for another player out, and find yourself a neat little pick. So, looking at 9-2, keeping things going, seeing how things are going to work out with this. I mean, Roscoe once more on the full buy, and the Swords kind of at a slacking in that same regard. It's going to make things difficult. Not really sure what you can do with this, but I mean, hey, if there's any time to really start lighting things up, I love to see a good Thrifty every now and again.
I mean, who doesn't? But regardless, doesn't come through this time around. A great turnaround. When I previously mentioned the Swords did a good job of getting that initial denial of space on the board. So now the question becomes, all right, if that strategy doesn't work, what do you default to? You default to further aggression, fight for C-Long when they're actually coming to you for once, but Bone's duel is getting cut off guard. Perfect flashes from Taco Cat, perfect shutdown of the Empress, and that means a perfect B site taken. Something tells me they're not done just yet. I mean, it's the last round. Might as well invest in neural theft and a dimensional drift to spot out how many members here are pressuring CT, an elbow, and I can't wait to see what TakaCat is about to do here from CT.
Yeah, what's it hurt? Go ahead, throw it all out there, just see what you can find yourself as a result. And you can already see the players just kind of pushing up into spawn, finding every necessary kill they really need. And while it does once again come around to Dominus Karma, who does have that opportunity to clutch things up, this is one of the most doable situation, I'd say. I mean, having that neural threat available, having it online, you get that second ping, you understand one's back over towards that main area. But if you don't win that fight, it doesn't really matter much. A 10-2 half coming out for Roscoe. We've seen 9 threes, we've seen 8 fours. 10 twos are few and far between. 11 1s even rare. And even then, I think once we hit this threshold of 10-2, comebacks aren't impossible, but you got to start off really strong. And while even then winning the pistol on the 9-3 setup, winning it on 10-2, I feel like it's just required.
Very, very true. And we'll see if that's what this squad is able to accomplish. It would be a stark turnaround, and it is going to have to come out of this pistol win. Now, what's interesting to me here is that the swords aren't even investing that much. I mean, you have that solo deagle for Adamu, but they're more leaning towards a lot of utility for their teams. And we'll see what that can bring to their attack, especially when they're headed for this B split. And MC Speedrun is going for early aggression out of B short. In the meantime as well, they've entrusted B long to Big Toad, to the Gecko player. Okay, TakaCat. I mean, you shouldn't be getting away with that, but that's a duelist gone.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I mean, seeing already, Classic resulting in something here. It's going to be an opportunity where we did see in that last half where Reyna didn't really have much of an impact in the pistol round in the first place, kind of fighting and obviously saving that ghost and playing for the retake. But I mean, even here, you're looking at the early aggression and you're looking at even then more of an expectations versus surprise kind of scenario, and already it's just not working out for you too hot. I mean, good trades across the board regardless, but Roscoe now being in the point where they're just kind of still holding this line of scrimmage where they just haven't let them cross that threshold yet. That's the most important thing. Is that one kill could set things apart, but another thing that could do just that is all the damage done in the meantime. 3 players sitting at basically 1 shot to a ghoster could be, and already, I mean, if you find those shots, that's why I love pistol rounds so much. Anything's doable, so even this 1v4 seems feasible when you have that kind of artillery to work with.
Yeah, we said it. A much-needed round here for swords. A plant on the B site, so they're alone. The rotation's going to be tried to get cut off by Atom Bomb, and Atom Bomb delivers exactly when they need to. A 4K to put swords back on the map, and honestly, I feel like if Roscoe forced this round, that would just be a sign of disrespect towards their sister team, so I'm just hoping they save. They're actually forcing a Bucky, a Marshall? Oh, I wouldn't take that, swords. I wouldn't take that. You better not lose this round. But we are going to wait again for the Graham reconnect. It's a strategy, right? It gives you a momentum breather every so often, Mick.
And even then, we get a bigger picture here, and we get a perfect look, at least in terms of MSOE's facility, of saying, well, whoever wins this game, we know which PC not to get on for these next couple of weeks in playoffs, because obviously something's going on there. It's going to be, unfortunately, Graham who's taking the hit this time around, but thankfully, they're all together. They have the dividers, and they're screaming across the room saying, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. Let's go ahead and run this thing back. Let's slow it down for a second. And let's just get things rolling when everything good. We can kind of get a little silly with it. We can get a little bit arrogant. We can kind of slip through the cracks on some things and kind of lose the greater scheme of stuff, because once those rifle rounds start to come into play, you're expecting those guns just to do all the real work for you, and that's exactly what we're going to start looking at here soon.
Yeah, so early Dizzy, not really going to confirm information, but the hit coming through nonetheless. A nice long-range fight taken with the Deagle, get some chip damage, but the corner player spotted out, run down, and that is the name of the game here on this B site. So much utility getting dumped in here. Animu mainly with these flashes being insane for taking space for the squad. Now, we're going to hold this backside CT choke point. They've confirmed that 2 out of the 3 remaining players are there, but the question is, have they checked the shot? And they have. Sacred taken out there from the flank, and now it falls to the remaining player, Triska. 1v3, the Marshall in hand. Gonna try and isolate fights thanks to that Molly playing zoning backside. They realize they gotta go faster. Deagle is the potential takeaway. At this point, you go for a ninja defuse. Let's see it, Triska. Come on. Gotta go faster.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that trap wire.
Even the trip wire being there, yeah. No real shot. Unfortunate. But even then, Swords carrying over 3 is what's really going to be a heavy hitter for him. I mean, while maybe not the biggest guns in the world, you do have at least have that Bulldog to work with. You do have a Vandal to play with. So you're saying, okay, there's a chance. So while it may be small, why it's a very large margin still to go ahead and overcome. This third round is really, really big. I want to say even kind of more influential than the first. Just because, sure, the first is great to get, but it really finds that setup for the third to say, do we really just kind of curb stomp them and get to that point where they don't have anything to work with? And you can get that kind of flip-flop situation where you see a buy, then an eco, then a buy, then an eco. And honestly, at that point, you only realistically need to win 3 real rounds compared to the full 6 that you're looking at on your scoreboard.
So for now, B-Site found such grandiose success last round for Swords. That's where they want to head here again. And because it was a slower walk-up, we're going to see the early rotation, but it's actually the early flank play and grab. You see it again. It happens to the best of us, but that might mean that this giant push out of a garden and flank could get the round done here for Roscoe. Yeah, Taco Cat, insane shots for the Classic. They have Spike down, Donks on the opposite site. Let's see what they're able to do, how many they can take down with them, or how they isolate these frags to get that Spike back under their control.
It hurts to see too, because Graham was the one with a Vandal, so if anything happens, you toss it off to at least another player. Say, I don't know if it's going to happen this time, but maybe somebody else should have this. It's so unfortunate. You even saw the Cypher go ahead and back up, kind of look for that recovery, say, oh, that's a free gun. That's a free upgrade I can work with. And unfortunately, running into one more defensive player who's already completely left your entire squad. But speaking of lapping, we see Donk do it once more. Going ahead, finding yourself right back to where you're supposed to be. But that's only because the defenders were kind of out of line for a second. With only 12 seconds remaining in the clock, it's a lot of a task to ask for to kind of get yourself on the site, find that plant, especially when you have 3 players surrounding you like sharks in the water.
Yeah, a few seconds more, they might have been able to dip through the teleporter towards A, but unfortunately, we are going to have Roscoe take that 11th round, so an 11-4 here. And another little tech pause just to make sure Graham is all sorted. You know, like we said, pivotal piece here of an attacking squad, especially on Bind. I mean, you take them out, you take out the Leers, and when you're trying to get that double-fronted approach through both Long and Hookah, you want your Yaru and Hookah, and you want your Reyna Long. So without that pivotal piece, and it does open up more fights to Roscoe, to your opposition. But like we said, this time it is shorter. I mean, they just got it at the beginning of the round. That was the strategy from Donk, right? It was just to buy enough time for the reconnection for the team. And 11-4, chance of slipping away, but we're not at the pinnacle that is map point just yet. So they can make like one more mistake, but they really need to tie a bunch of rounds here together.
Yeah, I mean, just getting that much bigger now. 10, I'm always saying it's looking kind of good. 11-1, I mean, we just saw one recently in the VCT circuit, and that was just like, seeing that on international stage already just got through out there. Not unheard of, but good God, is it an absolute diamond in the rough. It is a needle in a haystack. It's something you never run into, but we thankfully didn't see it this time around. But even then, looking at those deficits, when you look at those 10-2s, when you look at those 11-1s, it comes down to literally locking them out for at least a couple rounds. Finding 5, 6 consecutively, and you're saying, okay, look, this is feasible. We can just replicate that to some degree. Give them one round, let them think they have a shot now, and they kind of can start figuring things out, and then do it once more, and then you see yourself in a no-2. You see yourself Taco Cat messing around, getting the decoy off, and trying to play the fool, but it's just not fell for. Great reads there from Swords, understanding that he's messing around, and, well, unfortunately, couldn't really find too much of an effect. I mean, at this point, he's just apparently looking for clips. I mean, it's the Yoru blood.
Oh, and again, it's gonna be this trap play style, utilizing these teleporters on Bind. And the question is, they might think it's a fake. You can hear the reload at this point, so Cat's out of the bag. And it looks like the team doesn't want to hold the showers because they understand that A short is now a weak point. It's an opening, but that door is quickly gonna get slammed in the face of Atom Bomb. That's Spike down as well. This is where Speedrun wants to use their cage to get out here, potentially. But no, they're just holding the line, waiting for their teammates to take care of these players, and Speedrun says, no, I can do this. They're getting pinched as well from Spawn, but, I mean, Swords are just holding their ground, finding these frags in their favor, and Sacred is no exception. Donk shuts them down, and that's a 5th here for Swords.
Something to work with. I mean, things at least having some shed of light here, but I mean, Roscoe already just kind of seeing they had themselves a spike hold right towards A main. I gotta say, I'm kind of surprised you didn't see a little bit of a backup, and obviously the attempted retreat didn't really work out too well for them. They understand the players were trying to fight for that shower control early on, and that was a good fight, at least in terms of the swords regards, to kind of find themselves successful frags and at least get that pressure down to saying, we don't want this rotation to occur, so even if we do drop players, it comes down to just making sure that the other guys that are towards that area where the spike was already dropped, unfortunately off the get-go, that's what you need to make sure is the utmost priority. Play the rest of the map to kind of set that thing up. Whether it takes lives to get there, that's totally fine, as long as the end result is another round, and that's exactly what they found. Not only that, but they get themselves a first in the next as well. So things are looking doable for this one, knowing the numbers are already playing in your favor.
Here we go. Again, a chance for Roscoe to pull themselves onto map point, but that first blood and one of the duelists stolen away, that had a showstopper here. Aquacat's really gonna have to deliver with this pop flash out of the smoke, and they get one. Gate crash out, and through their own smoke, Triska finds one, that finds two. It might just be the ticket Roscoe needs. They'll have to confirm where these remaining players are, and that the teleportation did in fact come through, but at this point, they're just trying to fake some sort of play here. I see the dimensional drift invested to go recover the spike. Gate crash over to the B site, which is where their counterpart is headed. And this is a smart play. My only concern is that there's already rotations from Roscoe and CT towards the B site.
And even then, I mean, still just slipping right through the strips. I mean, you saw that obviously to some degree you're trying to get that cipher across. They even sniffed the guy out, but best part is you don't even need to know where he is. The tripwire is going to do more than enough work to go ahead and put in say, all right, somebody's on the flank. So while you did miss him on that dimensional drift, we got another one coming right at us. This may be an instantaneous rotation across the map, but you're not going to have enough time for that. You got to go ahead and defend this plant. You got to make sure that player doesn't get picked off. And while it does happen anyways, it's right after the spikes are put down. It's a lot to ask for, and for Roscoe to close things out like that to get themselves to a map point, it makes sense. I mean, seeing this was their pick off the get-go, so I mean, 5 to 12. We were expecting a little more out of the swords. I think honestly after that last round, I'm saying, hey, there's chances here. They're finding fights. They're understanding how Roscoe play this, and that's what I like to see is that they at least have a game plan going into these things. It's just that Roscoe are just winning a lot more of these outright fights, and when they're not messing around too much, it's just not unfair, but it does obviously show that who had themselves the better standing in their own division coming into this, and it really shows the kind of light of the seedings that are in play. So from that point here, swords, they do have somewhat of a buy on the field, so they got themselves something to work with, but it comes down once more to the ultimates they have in hand as well. The Hunter's Fury, the Orbital Barrage, they have chances, they have opportunities to create, but Roscoe has one of their own as well, sitting right inside hoop.
And here comes a play between the Gecko and the Yoru to try and take these early frags, but the response is instead for Sacred to go out and look for their own here, trying to corral them with this utility. Jump Peak throws themselves onto the rocket to keep the entire team alive there. So far, so good, but both teams using so much utility, not even a fight for a site, but for B long.
It's at that point, man. I mean, I get it. I get it. The Yoru plays are tempting, but they're not always going to work out the way you want to. Unfortunately, we do have Graham just still sitting in the back of spawn. Unreal, really. But all part of the game. It's happened too many times at the point where Roscoe, they say, it's map point. Go ahead and wrap things up. You see the shots. You take them. Let's give this entire break as a mediator to really figure out what's going on here. But in the meantime, it still comes down to the rest of the fights. While there is 2 players remaining, there is a chance. While it may be small, while it may be minimal, it's still doable to some degree. And even then is lowered even more so when we do see that second player going ahead and drop. So Atom Bomb already closing out 1. The rest of the team already lit up a good bit. So I mean, this is definitely doable. You don't even need to hit the headshots, really, just find the bodies. But even then, Adam is still managing to hit head after head after head. It just comes down to the collateral. Knowing you got the timing on another with 12 seconds remaining, you got to vault yourself onto this B site. And I don't think, honestly, with the Avenue going, it's not going to get done.
And at this point, like, Minecraft speedrun, they just hear it and they just have to run for their lives. And sometimes the clock is your biggest enemy.
This guy that we were expecting to see in map 1.
And I agree with you. Double Harbor is going to be a treat. And I mean, it's basically a mirror meta minus. Actually, wait, it really is mirror meta. Like we said, the teams know each other to a T. They have double controller, the Omen in person. is that code. So we'll switch up here a main and a split. And that just leaves Big Toad to contest.
Already just looking for something, though. I mean, already seen at least one player down, looking at the numbers going into the hands of Roscoe, and even then just kind of flowing off the back of that. We're seeing Taco Cat now off that Yoru on the rain, and we saw Taco Cat get mad aggressive on that last map. So this is the point where you're saying, honestly, go off, King. Do your thing. Just really hammer it down this time around, but don't go too crazy. That spike isn't yours. We got to get at least some form of utility off this because you found enough frags in that round, especially with it to be a flawless. So right stance there, getting things off, and even then, starting off things strong. Carrying over every single one of those weapons. The only thing you're really kind of keeping your eyes on is maybe that Sheriff, and even then more so, I'm keeping my eyes on these buys because we did see an idea of what could be that Vandal for a second, but I think if anybody's going to do that, it would have been Taco Cat, but still not even opting for it. It makes sense. They're probably going to be saying, look, things were looking good in the second round, so why not buy an Odin in the third? I'm not sure how much I'm really going to be eyeing.
Oh my goodness. I mean, they not only are saying we're going to rain a diff, but we're going to bring out the Odin.
Yeah.
You're going to push out one. We're just trying to force the rotation into this top mid stack harbor, the Cypher. Ready to take space with high tide, or even just feign it. I mean, they feigned aggression A main, they feigned aggression mid, and they're about to crowd the players into the Odin A main.
Right into that Odin. Wow, it's not going to have the same prominence of maybe like a Sova on a scent, but I mean, still, depending on what hands they're put into and an around like that, and carrying over everything once more, sitting in another flawless, it's I'm expecting that thing to have a little more of an impact on what we expect. Even then, with still so much money carrying over, I mean, you could see Roscoe buying up these guns just for the heck of it, but they already know they got some power players in their hand.
We are gonna have, I believe, a little tech ski pause here. Is that correct? Or is it just I'm gaslighting? I'm gaslighting you guys. It's so that you guys manifest us not having one. But a 2-0 already in Roscoe's favor, and that's not the momentum shift we would like to see. Nor is the first blood for on to Dominus Karma. That Sentinel, I said, had to be important for these defensive fronts.
Yeah, I mean, seeing really what they can accomplish here. I mean, honestly, swords, they just got to make sure to play things slow, because you know Roscoe in these kind of situations with the Odin already in hand, with his Bucky, with all this aggression to work with, I mean, they are just going to be really bringing the problem to you over and over and over again, because you know that these guys, they're going to say, look, let's close up shop. We're at the point now to where we've played this map so much, and even then better yet, probably in scrims, the fact that the swords haven't really played this too much in this regard, in the competitive aspect against this team. This is where Roscoe, where they haven't played this on a competitive stage, as you mentioned, or any map. Well, last thing they want to do is give up strats for it. Last thing they want to do is kind of be here forever and just absolutely show every last thing they got. So they want to kind of wrap this thing up just in case worse comes to worse and when they have to face other teams here.
Yes, they have a numbers disadvantage, but Roscoe leveraging that early Empress with an Odin. The spray from Graham is beautiful, though. Yes, there's a punish, but still, it's going to be a 1v3. Triska has to get the timing, and they cannot with that worst weapon, with that Spectre. So again, the first round for swords comes out of that first rifle. Bye. We'll see what the response from Roscoe is. Unfortunately, though, swords didn't collect the Odin.
Is there? I think it's more of a preference. I think a lot of players, if you get a Vandal and a Phantom, you're saying, I'm good. But, I mean, even then to pass it over to Graham, that would be doable, but I don't know. It really comes down to personal preference. Even then, still has enough money to buy for this round, I would say. So, I mean, why not go for it? At least meet the rest of your team, because, I mean, Animu isn't looking all that hot either after this buy, but looking right back to the tried and true, going for the normal buys that we see once more. Full Vandals, full Phantoms. While we do see some sacrifices in terms of armors, not the biggest deal in the world, but we are seeing these teams start to iron out their compositions a little bit more so, even in their buys and their arsenals are playing with. So, I mean, this is looking definitely feasible. This is going to be the more impactful rounds to say, look, we're now looking at equilibrium. We're looking at an equal side in the game, so we need to see really what these teams can do when the playing field is kind of like finally level, I'd say.
Look at this, a mid-fight gearing up here. Dark cover to try and lull the pressure, but Taco Cat just gets isolated as a result around Pillar. And now that they found the first blood, the idea is to pop through Market, where my only concern now is going to be that Fade here lurking B main. Spy Cam not spotting them out means they might have the element of surprise here. The question is, how many are they going to get, or will the thoroughness from Autumn Bomb be enough? And it is for the 1-for-1 trade.
Gotta do more of that. I mean, well played here by the Swords. They're starting to understand what Roscoe's starting to bring to the table. They like to get those isolated players to push up and find those initial engagements to just start the round off and throw a wrench in all their plans, but they're just not even letting that really come to life. They're just going ahead, spreading themselves out, making sure that, okay, they're gonna come in one by one. They don't really respect us enough to go for that entire push that goes off simultaneously, and they have the fragging power to meet. I mean, already, seeing the 1v1 situation, going for trade here. Problem is, those 1v1s are the most influential, and that's when your best player has to honestly be standing alive, or at least one with cold blood who can really just make sure to win those things. But the 3-1, Roscoe closed things out. That round of equilibrium, I said, now coming to a close, but we're not really going to see too much of that again, because if we do get a full buy even in the next round, it comes down to how many of these ultimates are going to be available for Roscoe in that one, and you're going to have that Nightfall, you're going to have that Reckoning to play with, so it's going to be kind of on that same stance once more, and I'd say those two are arguably going to be a lot better, at least for the kind of sight control that you're looking for, compared to something like an Empress and From the Shadow.
Yeah, no, a great clutch there, great retake. Nice trades coming through, nice distractions, but this round, it looks like Roscoe was trying to go for a hard read of it being an A take. They send real Mr. Taco Cat down deep into A main to try clearing things out. Now they're joined by a few more members. I mean, the Hunt did catch the trail of one player, so they're only expecting a few, and a perfect flash point means they can isolate one. That's your first form of smokes gone, but in the meantime, Swords, right? They've made the proper pivot to B. They have Reckoning online and can use it as a post-plant strategy. Oh, Big Toad. That's a Bucky. How'd you get that shot off? And Speedrun, now in the hot seat. How are you about to get this potentially off?
Planted.
Let's see where the entries are coming from. You already see another player off across the map, so it's not even really a 4v2, it's a 3v2, so it's a lot more doable for the time being. And when you look at the damage already done, things are
huge.
Feasible here for the side of Roscoe, but you got to look at what they're doing. No Reckoning being forced up towards them, no real time to be guided here, and knowing that you have a singular play and you're getting those audibles, you're forcing the pressure and forcing the plan to that last remaining player to say, I gotta push up, I have to contest this, otherwise the round's over. And you just kind of get to that last resort situation where you have to see nothing but red for a couple of seconds. So sitting at 4-1, Roscoe, they just kind of have the better reads on what's really going on here. These plants, they just kind of give them up because their retakes are looking so clean that they're not really having to risk much just to get to this point. Even then, that round where they were at a point where they were on the bonus and the Swords actually had the buy, even though it was a 1v3 situation they were in, even then, they gave up a lot for it. They got to the point where they lost those two initial players, but they all just kind of played back towards main. And if we saw Roscoe win, I say one more of those fights, have two players in that situation, I think you win it.
I agree. And it really was just random playing distraction. They're not allowing them to get the full impact of that Cypher utility. I mean, we wanted to see Graham deliver, and it's been Mr. Taco Cat, another first blood under their name. This time, at least, fortunately, traded out. But you lose Donk, you lose those extra smokes, you lose that rotation option.
Looking for it. Middle of the map, and you see the trades already going away. You see the ultimates on hand for the Swords, and I mean, this will be one of those points where you're saying, look, this is kind of a good time, I would say, to at least pop that Empress. Look to go ahead and compensate for those numbers where you can get that domino effect to really start coming into play, but that's just not going to be the case here. Even then, so much pressure to the middle of the map. You do see that Harbor once again come in to kind of have that impact, wall everything off, and create this arena. That's what I love about this guy. He just closes things off and creates almost this octagon feel to say, when you're in here, sure, you can spam through it, but it's pretty water. Nobody really wants to do that. And, well, it just creates this one-on-one or 2v2 situation that you really force your hands into. But the hand is forced of the Swords right now. And 1v4 in terms of the rounds, 1v3 in terms of the players, and you just can't really close that thing out. It's Roscoe just really hammering this thing in to where the Swords don't even get the opportunity to come in and put their game plans into play. They have 4 ultimates to work with. They've had opportunities to really kind of throw these things out there, but it just feels like there's some hesitancy, like there's going to be a better opportunity. If anything, I think you need to get to that kind of mind state where you're saying, I need to understand where we can pop this and what the timing of that would look like in spawn before we think about sight, just because it's looking like it's difficult to get there even in the first.
So 5-1, lots of ultimates for Swords to work with to put themselves right back into things. But again, it's just this correctly placed aggression out of real Mr. Taco Cat. And as they learn to adjust to this Reyna kit, they use a dismiss effectively to ensure there's no trade and double that down with Sacred's own aggression. They've pinched the players here for Swords. They're stopping even a sight take before it happens, so these ultimates can't be invested in the same place to tie a round together. And I mean, this round is as good as gone, and big toad through spawn as well. So every avenue of playing potential being taken advantage of. And Adam Bomb with a stinger! You might be able to do something here, but with 14 HP, things are looking grim.
14 HP, the stinger. Oh, Phantom! You get an upgrade. But you gotta make sure to kind of play on these ranges to where obviously you're hitting first bullets and nothing else. That's really all you got to work with, quite frankly. Or unless you find yourself maybe a couple miracles going up against these next two players. Because, well, they have to get the lineups where they find themselves shot, and if they whiff anything, that's when disasters start to spell itself out. Looking at the slows, finding the lineups there, it's another round result here for Roscoe as they find themselves at 6. Still a lot of ultimates to work with now in their hands because the Swords have been holding on to theirs, it feels like, for a very long time. I don't know how many more opportunities you're going to find to really get those ultimate situations now, especially with an operator on the field. While you do have some players pushing up aggressively every now and again up towards that attacking side spawn, we're seeing Roscoe now at a point to where they can just kind of play this game even further back. They can let that operator find that effect, kind of wait for the rest of the audio cues to go off, and then just press that X button as a result.
So now, Roscoe, the ones with a lot of ultimates to work with here, just a couple. This already well-placed aggression. I mean, you can already see it's taking its toll. Swords here, not as confident in their sight take, waiting for that aggression to come. It's not going to, though, so a double investment actually here. One to clear market, one to clear sight, and it still has not stopped Sacred from getting the initial frags. And with the spy can never destroy, they have all the info they need to inform their team on how to retake the site with their own reckoning and now their own rolling thunder. This round is just everything but the kitchen sink getting thrown in, and it's all favoring Roscoe.
Just once more, it's these retakes. Even then, I mean, they didn't even have time to really find the post-plant setup. There's been so much going on. There's so much protecting him now. And even then, better yet, with that defuse going off, there's so many bodies standing between you and that spike to where you couldn't hit enough shots to really just find, not even better yet, the straight shot. We already see players who spam through smokes just to go ahead and hold down that spike, but better yet, to line up 3 players right before it. So it's just a situation to where Roscoe beat the Swords to the chase, and it was the perfect round to do that. It was more so the ultimates, they weren't in a certain position where either side was playing it proactively or reactively.
In their favor, whether it be trades, whether it just be joint utility usage. And I'm wondering if Swords is trying to discuss if they need to outplay the aggression, if they need to they need to beat the rotation so Roscoe can't just flood back in like they've been doing. But even then, I think the way that Roscoe's approaching things where they have aggression on one front, the Cypher anchoring on the other, it makes it really hard to slip through any kind of cracks unless you win those fights outright.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing the way this is working so far for the Swords, I mean, this is their map pick, and this is an even worse case than what we saw on the first map, and it kind of hurts to see, all things considered. I mean, knowing that you're hoping that this is when they really start to light things up, and every single one of their rounds, I mean, especially their initial takes look really good, really clean. They understand what the gaps are and what Roscoe's providing. But it's also because Roscoe kind of gives it up to some degree. Even right here, I mean, Taco Cat's pushing right up towards that A main area of the map. You're seeing that aggression come through where they're saying, okay, we know that smoke's there, so we could either go to the middle of the map. We already have players that are towards B, so they're probably going to allocate there. And while the spike is trapped towards that A site, they understand that if there's an opportunity to take, we could squeeze through into their spawn, knowing how small this map really is, to kind of take this from an alternative angle, really trap them back towards our spawn when they just don't even expect to get there in the first place. But the first play goes over to the side of Roscoe with an immediate trade, so you're thankful at least for that nonetheless. But
30 seconds
it comes down to the Swords and how even then, while they do have the equal numbers, they don't have the equal ultimates, and they don't have the equal health because Atom Bomb is basically one bullet.
Now 4v4, Empress popped Mr. Taco Cat on the offensive here with a flank coming through. They've pinched these players, and they're just trying to buy down the clock. A 1v2 at this point. If you are Roscoe, just fall back. and try to play spike plant denial. I mean, look at that. The Prowler alone is going to deliver it. Spray through, trap wire one way. You're out of bullets. You're out of hope. And you might be running out of rounds here. 8-1, similarly dominant first half out of Roscoe.
Question is the Swords ever going to find that second? Because we did see the 10-2 on the first map's half, but I mean, with now a double operator and an Odin, I think Roscoe are just trying to really perform a stress test here of how much money can you spend it around and how much does that compensate for. We do see the double operator still being shifted to a different player. There's enough money for MSOE to buy one for themselves as well, but I think it makes sense to say, look, let's be relatively realistic here. The operators are fun and all, but it's not to that degree. But already, singular player off the board. That's an upgrade for at least one of these Roscoe players, or better get one of the Sword players. But knowing that they still have to make something off this, I think, honestly, knowing what you have to work with, I want to see when Graham prompts this Empress, because it has been held on to for a pretty long while, and I think, honestly, we do see Reynas who like to hold on to it. They don't like that faster fire rate too much. They like to kind of get that acceleration. They like to have that natural feel of working with stuff. And knowing the Empress could provide that pressure, just that intimidation factor, that's what you need. You just need to create some air for yourself here to get something done.
Yeah, and I was worried about what this Odin was going to do, and the fact that it finds another and has halted the aggression of Swords. Again, trying to punish the overzealousness of Roscoe, and this time they will. So they've evened the numbers out, and you can see the Cypher trying to pull rotations over to the B site, and it actually has worked. They thought they just grabbed an additional frag and ran their way over, but as this high tide drops, it's going to be the operator from Triska to realize, oh, there's still players. They're still going A, and you can see the scramble now to meet them there from Big Toad, and there's be utility to try and deny this space. There's also the operator double op, I should remind you here. It gets its window opportunity on Jenny, but that falls through, and now they're gonna get reflanked potentially by the Cypher. Yeah, the gun barrel's too long.
Oh. There you go. Another operator to kind of follow it up and maybe trade it, but it's just not something you really expect. Even then, Scared Zia kind of moving a little bit scared to get onto site. Another defender there,
Beautiful.
already having the Odin making the swap and knowing where that last player could possibly be. Comes down to Karma, able to get one. You see the stick possibly coming through, and still those don't fake. And sometimes neither do collegiate players. So already they find themselves in a 9-1. A good read from Roscoe there, understanding the kind of difference between you and your teammates, and even the timing on the spot to just go ahead and make sure that thing is held down. Find yourself a 9th round. Doesn't matter whether you die or not. We saw them buying up a bunch of operators the last round just to mess around with it. So
yeah,
I think money is the least of their concerns here. You do see Big Toe kind of going for a judge, but honestly, in this map, it's a completely feasible option.
I think last round, like, yes, they're messing around with the ops, but I think the ops are ultimately what won them that round. I mean, you can't plan out in the open when you have one posted up CT, one posted up Link, and that plant is solely what allowed the stick to come through. But again, it feels like if you are Swords, you should recognize that Roscoe's gonna be pushing up like this. They should not be able to get out with one grab, because then you're either out smoke, so you're out of rotation option, or you're out some of that initiating utility like that breach, which can be pivotal for a site take. And look at this, they're even abusing other avenues on the side of Roscoe. They're like, all right, if we can't push down A main, we're gonna push down tiles, and it's working. They're disrespecting that Cypher utility. They're disrespecting Swords.
I mean, seeing how this is really going, I mean, for the Swords, that's good look so far. I mean, still have that reckoning to work with. Honestly, the best part about it is you don't have to be in line of sight to really get any effect. It's not like a showstopper. So if you do still want to exert that pressure towards an area of the map, you do want to assist your team and find somewhat of an actual pressure tool to get on the site, and especially a little bit of intel as well. You could pop that on the other side of a wall, kind of back towards that spawn, and still get that effect off. Knowing you found that extra frag there, that's now a player you're saying, honestly, we're not really nearly as stressed about it. Put him on a flank somewhere. It's a harbor. He reaches what feels like on for miles. So it's a doable option. Just kind of let him do his thing, because it does look like he could get that flank on the Cypher. He is a little bit slow to the cut. Still with Spike in hand, that's the most stressful thing for me. You got a solo venture going on to the A site. You got Atom Bomb now just kind of wandering around playing Breath of the Wild, trying to just find an opening here somewhere. And you only got 10 health to do any of this. And rather than going over towards B, well, you take the 1v3. Little awkward, but something I would say that an element of surprise could play out in your favor for.
Yeah, I feel like this point, Swords, it just feels like they're breaking down a little bit. I mean, we saw it. The cohesion that they do to deny the initial aggression that Roscoe's been throwing at them to get those trades, that's been what gets the round in their favor early on. And then all of a sudden they're taking solo fights. They're taking these solo ventures that you mentioned, and it's just a complete 180 from what was working, or I should say almost working, since they've only been able to successfully achieve one round. I mean, yes, his aggression's finding openings in the defense, but they're not even abusing those with the solo players. Oh, not again.
Yeah, Taco Cat just finding that momentum. I mean, this is the 11-1, 10-2 kind of situation. Worst case, we see Swords meet that same exact half we saw over on Bind. Best case, he gets, I mean, something even maybe closer if we do see that second half start to go in their direction. But knowing 11-1, that's just kind of suicide to some degree. It's just kind of at that point where you're like, things aren't just going out all that well for us. Knowing that 10-2 didn't work out, 11-1 sure as heck. Knowing already more and more players getting cut off, Taco Cat is just being that Reyna that everybody fears, not just playing at least the role of the duelist well, but able to kind of cosplay that intimidation factor of a Reyna in a ranked game. It's just something that's just overwhelming. So now the odds are stacked against you. 11-1, it's not a point where you're saying, do we force them in that second round? You're saying, do we honestly go all sheriffs in this first one just because we needed that much?
Full sheriffs. Yeah, no, I think the utility has definitely been the go-to for Swords, and I think it should be here. I do like the buy being multiple avenues of kind of, I guess, close up with the Frenzy, long range with the Ghost, but 11-1 at the end of the day, it's a worse half than what you had on Bind. So you got to figure out what to do here on the defense. It looks like they want to surprise Roscoe. They're going to take their strategy and run with it. It looks like we're going to see at least 3 members here pushing it down mid towards Pillar, and let's see what the response from Roscoe is. Something tells me they might respect this fight and take it.
Well, already with that shot, you know exactly what's going on. You know the players are pushing up. You know what the Swords are trying to pull off. But even then, Roscoe not really able to answer it. 2 players down, even then, a good bit of damage kind of spread amongst everybody to some degree, but Roscoe having at least 2 players alive completely and having Taco Cat alive, more importantly, that's the unfortunate reality that's in front of you. This guy obviously going off an absolute spree in that last one, just so long as you can remain alive and have the necessary trades. It's at a point where Karma's in a bad situation, saying, now I got to play for the retake as well. Hearing that spike go off, I saw 1 player back towards mid, but even then, I know the spike is going off towards A. I got to just go ahead and find myself in my own adventure now in a 1v2 where I have an entire map I have to cross.
And that's the kind of buzzer beater here, is that they don't have a lot of time, and my concern here is that that's going to rush them to take these fights once they finally do get to site, and when you're up against the clock, that's when you make mistakes. Spy cam confirms, should be a swing out from MC Speedrun, and yeah, they're just buying time for their team! And it's the perfect amount so that Sacred can get in this position for the trade and lock in map and series point for Roscoe here in the Midwest playoffs.
I saw the desperation.
12-1, not only map point, but as you can tell there, match point. We don't have a best of 3 system inside the game yet, but even then, regardless, we would have it set up to say exactly that. Just looking to go ahead and close things out. Roscoe obviously having the force buy, going ahead, find the biggest weaponry they can, because they say worst case scenario, we just go into the next one. We got a lot of rounds of coverage between us and them, or we could literally just sit out for a couple just to save up enough to 9K and then start trying again. But obviously, you want to kind of go ahead and close things out early, because as I mentioned, not only the clock ticking for the side of the Swords here, knowing the rounds are against them, but Roscoe even coming to this map, they haven't played it yet. And, I mean, good enough for them, for the Swords to opt to choose this map, and Roscoe still to have to play it. They're looking extremely strong, like this could be an integration to their map pool if this just feels good enough.
Yeah. I mean, I can see the influences from Swords in the comp they went with, but I would love to see them make it their own like they have thus far. But already into the thick of this round, it is a 3v3 as the spike finally gets planted. And while they don't have the best weapons, it is a force-up, so Swords has something left in the tank to throw at the squad. Unfortunately, the backstab from MC Speedrun. Now the forward aggression and the CC off that fault line, off that Odin. Albeit Donk able to beat them to the punch here. But even then, I mean, time's not their favor. Big Toad, are you actually going to do this? You're actually going to do it. You're actually going to do it. And they're not going to respect it. They're going to pull out the plastic.
Out.
And they're going to punish. But look who's also there. Wait, Ninja Defuse. Ninja Defuse.
Too.
Ninja Defuse. Animu.
Clutch.
I should pay.
Oh my god. Spike, don't let your ego get to you. They just ninja defused on you while you're going for the knife kill.
And this is Valorant, too. I mean, ninja fuses don't really go off. Thankfully, in this map, the spike does make sound. In every map, the spike makes sound. In this game, it makes sound, thankfully. If it didn't, saying, we're waiting on opportunity. We're waiting on these exchanges. We're hoping these rotations come through. We're just kind of trying to find these very slight angles. And if we don't make the most of that, just things aren't going to go in our way. And it's an unfortunate reality of the circumstance, but it's just how the game has to be played. And on defense, it's just a nightmare to pull off.
Yeah.
I've never seen that art.
I have not either. It's a high quality Valorant moment. But what we need is high quality gameplay out of Swords from this moment onward. 10 rounds in a row they have to tie together here. And I mean, Roscoe, they just took a timeout, so they're the ones that have adjustments to be made that now Swords will have to respond to. So thus far, a little bit of feigned aggression here, aim towards mid to deposit Triska this deep, while they really want to set their sights on A so that Triska can go for that late round top mid flank. Unfortunately, Donk has better ideas. Donk has the timing, but not the shot. And that's a neural theft hand delivered. But it might not matter if Animu ends the round before the spike can even go down. Unfortunately, backstab keeps things in contentions, keep things on a 3-on-3. But again, Triska's in place. Triska's just going to be able to punish here. Only a classic. How many can they truly get before the force that is Swords swarms over MC Speedrunner? Oh.
Just one. That may be all you really need.
No gun.
You're gonna pick up. Got a cove. Got some coverage. Understands that a Phantom is over there, and it's a much better option. Like the trade-off, and with Adam only being one shot,
no,
this is
like
literally
this.
1v1 that can go ahead and end things off. Still Spike within their grasp as well. Doable. You got 20 seconds. If you haul it, you could get across the map, sure, but even then, that's when you're sacrificing a little bit too much when you know this player is around this site. So, covering shots, going back and forth, trying to bait that down, see where you can hear some footsteps go off. If that is the case, but even this spray through and not enough there to close off Graham, as we do find ourselves at least one more round coming out for the Swords.
Whew, that was a little bit too close for comfort. I understand you have an Odin, you can get the Radiant Knight box spray down, but when time's not in your favor, nor is the HP, and you're up against Arena. Yeah, so 12-3, Swords continue to clash. And now, I mean, you can see they're still going with the SMG approach. Double Ares, Odin, they're just pure meme fueled at this point. But if it works, it works. I mean, that's 2 rounds in a row they've tied together. They're going to be looking for more here, but look at the early denial. The utility invested from both sides here. And, I mean, I'm afraid for these players are going to get caught out on sight.
To see really what we surmounted here already. I mean, good going back and forth. That isolated player that was over towards the outside of that A side, you understand that people went in their way, wasn't ready for the second, and when you're kind of stranded, you need to be ready for that just in case. Damage done, otherwise the kill feels like
Empress.
a long scheme. But already the Empress wanted to play here for Taco
dismiss.
Cat. This is where things can become really concerning. It's up against Sur and Ares, which requires a little bit of a wind up, but an Empress, every single gun doesn't need a wind up. It is just a menace. It keeps on moving forward. With dismissal available and ready to roll, you know where Donk is, you know where the other player ran away to where you're saying, honestly, they're all funneling back towards that left side of the map. So let's just run A, or let's just chase down the kills too. That's also a doable option.
Hello. Yeah, but in the meantime, they've found the last player. They're going for the knife again! Can you not? Oh, and this could be again what seals the deal. That or they just want Roscoe to take the cake, to take the clip, end it here, but it's your sister team, you're having fun. This is a playground skirmish, but Spike collected. They know that they're tiles. It means A site free for the taking, so they're going to force them to take the fight since time is of the essence. Only thing here is the Empress is going to expire, yeah. So they have no shield now to work with.
Still doable. Basically
doable.
equal, considering you look at the Cypher damage. Same kind of situation. But playing the Spike out in the open is the best play you can make in a situation like this. You go for default because it works around the utility. And obviously Taco Cat on the head saying, yes, I'm going for the knife. This could be their downfall. I'm genuinely kind of hoping it is. If they want to keep going for this, and then we just see a massive round differential just kind of completely be pulled off.
Oh my god!
There's no way.
You call me the nothing.
Alright. All right, 12-4. Ults to work with for swords. So, I mean, that's a good thing. Real Mr. Taco Cat not able to get the clutch. I think they want somebody. They should just leave. Like they should just, what is it? I forgot what the strat roulette is called, but it's like leave everybody in spawn and have one person go out and try to ace. And once they die, then you send the next person. I feel like that would be a great strategy here for Roscoe to take. Albeit they're on the attack, but you know it doesn't matter. Just leave Spike in spawn, see what they can find. You know, pad some of these KDAs before the end of the game. Knife kills are great and all, but yeah, get that stats farmed. But now, I mean, they're fanning pressure on multiple parts of the map. They're gonna try and overwhelm the B site with this Nightfall. But even then, the swords, they want to play retake. I mean, you have a Nightfall, you have a Reckoning. I mean, sorry, you have a Rolling Thunder and a Reckoning. That's like picture perfect, and that's why we're seeing the fight forward as well, Nick.
I just want to go ahead and kind of cut them off before they even get the opportunity to use all these ultimates because they're waiting for the full rotation. They're waiting for all players to kind of get that opportunity to say, okay, we can find this closure. But even then, when you overextend like that, you do already find Atom Bomb finding 2 players just because you're looking for that early aggression. And Roscoe, while having that spike in, it really comes down to the timer and really how it wants to happen. Because knowing that the swords want to go for this full player kind of take, the numbers aren't really fully there for them. I mean, even then, saying the exact thing for the side of Roscoe. So, I mean, I'm sure they're trying to go for this kind of play and with nothing but a Guardian in hand and now switching over to the Vandal, not having still the shots or knowing what the players are. It's a 5th round to work with on the side of the swords.
I mean, the Cove, couple that with the Rolling Thunder, that's an amazing retake strategy here. And now 12-5 on the line. These swords taking the rounds as they come. And they're using it to charge up other ultimates as well. So Empress now on the table. My question is, where is Roscoe going to bring the big Toad Rolling Thunder to? And they're on an eco round. So I think they're going to play grouped up this time, not going to spread themselves thin. I'm excited to see what the strategy is.
Again, same exact situation. I think they're just going to wait for the retake, hold on to everything. But now Roscoe has better guns. Got you. Or at least you would think they do, but he's still kind of forced in the last round, so debatable. But regardless, having Reckoning available is not nearly as influential as a Rolling Thunder because it's not direct on-stun contact. There is a chance to dodge it, and that's purely because of the trade-off of the information that a Reckoning gives. But I don't know. Since it's dodgeable, it still offers a lot more kind of clean gunfight to come out from the side of Roscoe if they do find themselves fight in that spike plant scenario. And depending on where it goes, they could also isolate it maybe somewhere. I mean, knowing if you bring it over to the A site instead of over towards B, you have a little bit more leniency of trying to circumnavigate it and still find a cutoff for these guys who are trying to play for the retake. But the biggest thing is to get that spike first. They're really starting to struggle with it. Trying to find these engagements, or trying to see where things really start to open up for them. You do have a Rolling Thunder on the side of the attack, but I mean, there's no reason whatsoever that you should really pop it up, especially as the numbers start diminishing more and more.
Hanamu's just been insane at solo holding this A site, and the rest of the team is just being used instead to ensure there's no other openings, gaps in the defense that the Roscoe players can take advantage of. And might get a Western duel out here with the dig, but it only gets chip damage, so a flawless round for swords. Keep fighting back.
Go again. Comeback looking doable by the swords, but that was also off the back of a ninja defuse and a round that was supposed to be guaranteed, or not guaranteed, but still, I mean, heavily favored on the side of Roscoe. Another round where they try to go for a knife. So what? It's at least 2 rounds forfeited by knives so far, and well, that's a third of their score. So things are looking doable, and you get to that point to where, once again, keep in mind, I mean, even then, these kind of eco rounds have not been the best for Roscoe. Like, the skill differential isn't that massive where they can just kind of roll you over whatever they got. So it only really takes 3 rounds here for to really win this thing out.
They missed the Rolling Thunder. And look at the immediate response. Reckoning out to contest to deny the spike plant. Neural Theft is going to propel Mr. Taco Cat forward, though, to challenge, and this might be where they decided to put things to bed. A 1-for-1 trade, though, and suddenly the last to stand is Animu. They've been insane defensive force on the A site. Now they're the solo one in a retake scenario. The question is Roscoe going to go for the knife? Are they going to go for the glory? I mean, they had the breach utility to do it. They have cages. You gotta do something, Animu. You gotta.
They're just holding.
Time's against you, King.
I don't think they're messing around this time.
The spy cam. Toad?
Dude. There's
There's
no
a little
way.
spot. Okay, thank you, Sacred. Sacred is our
Attackers
blessing from above. 13-6.